Let's now turn to John 3:16 in your wide line text. And see what we can do with this one. I'll write the words out larger again. Hutos, gar, agapison, hotheos, ton, cosmon. Now, in this clause, what's a clause? A clause is a group of words in which there is a subject and a predicate. What's the predicate in a clause? A predicate is the verb and everything else that goes with the verb, like a direct object, an indirect object, or any adverbs. So a clause is a group of words in which there's a subject and a predicate. What word do we want to identify when we're looking at a clause in Greek? We want to find the verb. And of these words right here, which word looks like it's a verb? How about this one? Agapison. Right. Agapison is from the verb agapao. And agapao, see the omega on the end? Agapao means I love. I love. What's the next thing we ask of this verb? Is there an augment? Well, notice that this verb begins with a vowel. So if there were to be an augment, this vowel, alpha, would lengthen to an eta. So do we have an augment in this verb, agapison? Yes, we do. So the first thing we write down, and I'll put it above the verb this time, the first thing we write down is the word indicative. Why? Because the augment shows past time, and only in the indicative is time an element. That limits us to one of three tenses which can show past time: the imperfect, and the pluperfect. You can forget the pluperfect for right now. Go to the back part of the verb and let's identify the ending, epsilon nu. And remember what we've said, that this is technically not an ending, but rather an epsilon connecting vowel and a movable nu. We will think of it as an ending, though, for practical purposes, and it is third person singular, and so an active ending. And we notice in front of the ending a sigma tense indicator. And of the two tenses which we've narrowed this verb down to, either imperfect or aorist, which one has a sigma tense indicator? The aorist does. So our parsing is aorist, active, indicative, third singular. And a provisional translation for this verb would be he loved, or he has loved, or he did love. Now, after we have analyzed our verb, we want to see if the subject is further expressed. Since this verb is a third singular verb, what we would look for would be some singular nominative noun or pronoun. What do we see? The word theos. Theos would be parsed masculine, singular, nominative. So that would be the subject. God loved. Now, what is it that God loved? Whenever we answer or ask the question, what or whom, we will be dealing with the syntactic function called direct object. What is it that God loved? God loved the world, ton kosmon. Now, how do we parse kosmon? Masculine, singular, accusative. How do I know the word is masculine? Well, for one thing, I've got a masculine definite article in this word, but for another thing, I could look it up in a dictionary and memorize it as part of my vocabulary list, that it's a masculine word. Remember also that direct objects will never have a preposition in front of the direct object. So this word, kosmon, would be the direct object. It is telling us what it is that God has loved. God loved the world. Now let's deal with the two words here. The second word, gar, is a post-positive conjunction, just like de is post-positive. Remember what that word post-positive means? Post-positive, post meaning after, and positive meaning the first position. So this word never occurs in the position in Greek, even though in our English translation we do translate it first. For God loved the world. The first word here, hutos, is an adverb. What do adverbs do? Basically, adverbs modify verbs. They can also modify adjectives, and they can modify other adverbs. But for the most part, adverbs modify verbs. Now, in this clause, where is our verb? Agapeson. So that must mean that this adverb is modifying this verb, agapeson. This adverb hutos means so, or thus, or in this manner, or in this way. And so what adverbial information would this adverb be giving us about the verb God loved? Could it not be said that God loved in this manner or in this way? For God loved in this way the world. God loved the world in this way. And look at the next clause that we have in this same verse, beginning with the word hoste. Hoste ton huion ton monogene eroken. Now, of those words, is there anyone that looks like that it might be a verb? Look at this word eroken. Has an epsilon in front. It has that epsilon new ending, third singular ending. Okay, that looks like, doesn't it? Yes. Hoste is an adverbial conjunction which introduces a result clause. It's going to show us the result of some action. God loved the world with what result? With what resulting action? Now, within this clause, what's a clause? Clause is a group of words in which there's a subject and a predicate. Within this clause, find our verb. Okay, we said the verb is edoken. I'm going to give you the lexical entry of this verb. The lexical entry is the verb didomi. You can't go very far in learning a language before you come across certain irregularities. Life is full of a little with irregularities, and we have to learn how to deal with them, and irregular verbs are none the least of these. Didomi is what we call a me verb because the first singular is in me. There are a bunch of these verbs. We've learned another one, haven't we? A-me, meaning I am. And we know that that me on the end of the verb is simply a personal ending that means I. What we are left with here is the present tense stem of the verb. How do you get the present tense stem verb? What do? You take the lexical entry of the verb. Let's take luo. You take the personal ending and you knock it off. You remove it. And what you're left with is the present tense stem of the verb. So how do we get the present tense stem of the verb dido me? We personal ending me, a name I call myself, and we knock it off. And what we're left with is the present tense stem. Now there is a peculiarity with some me verbs. Some me verbs are reduplicated in the present tense stem, utilizing an iota vowel for pronunciation. Or you're used to seeing the perfect tense reduplicated with an epsilon vowel for pronunciation. Well, there are some me verbs too which are reduplicated in the present tense stem, and they're reduplicated by using this iota vowel in their reduplication. What I'm going to do is to remove this present tense reduplication, and what I am left with here is the basic form of this verb, do. Do you remember that recently in another passage or in one of our examples I mentioned to you that anytime you see the word do or some form of it, it has to do with giving or a gift. Well, this is the basic stem of this verb dido me. And the aorist and the future and the perfect tenses are going to utilize this basic stem to build their tenses. Now, I know this is getting a little complicated, but I'm going to be repeating things like this over and over and over again. So if you're not getting the first time, well, let it go in one ear and out the other, or rewind the tape and look at it again. But you'll eventually get it. Okay, look at the verb that we're trying to parse here, edokin. You see, do. That means to give. Do we have an augment in front? Yes, we do. So it is indicative. Why? Because the augment shows past time, and only in the indicative is time an element. That limits us to one of three tenses which can show past time: the imperfect, the aorist, and the pluperfect. Poor old pluperfect, let's just forget it for a while. Okay, let's go to the back part of the verb, and we see this ending, epsilon, which is third singular. It's also an active ending. And in front of it, we see a kappa tense indicator. Oh my goodness. I thought it was the perfect tense which had a kappa tense indicator. Well, just like we said that life is full of little irregularities, so we have some irregularities here as well. There are 4 verbs in the New Testament which will take a kappa tense indicator for some of their aorists instead of a sigma. These are frequent enough verbs that you're going to have to learn them. Let me write them out for you. Didomi is one of them. It means I give. Tithemi is another one. Tithemi means I put or place. Compounds of the verb hiemi. When I say a compound of a verb, I mean there will be a prepositional prefix attached to this verb. This verb never occurs all by itself in the New Testament. It always has a prepositional prefix attached to it. And then the fourth verb is phero. An easy way to remember this is that there are 4 verbs in the New Testament which take a kappa tense indicator for some of their aorist forms instead of a sigma. 3 Italians and an Egyptian. The Italians are didomi, tithemi, compounds of hiemi, and our Egyptian is phero. Well, if something stupid like that helps you to remember, it's worth it, I guess. Let's look at the basic stem of these 3 me verbs. Didomi, the basic stem is do, a deer, a female deer, means to give. The basic stem of tithemi is the, T-H-E. We get English words like thesis. See? The, to put something forward. The basic stem of hiemi is this one letter right here, an eta, and it means to go. It's just like in English, our English word go is a little short word, go. In Greek, go. And in phero, our present tense stem is the stem pher. Phero means I bear, or I carry, or I produce, or yield. I'll be going back over all of this again sometime. So again, if you're not all right now, don't worry about it. And there will be other exercises that will help you to get this. So, when we look in John 3:16 and we see this verb edoken, we see a kappa tense indicator right here instead of a sigma, and now we know it's aorist because it's one of those 4 verbs that takes a kappa tense indicator rather than a sigma. Remember, there are 4 of them, 3 Italians and an Egyptian. Didomi, tithemi, compounds of hiemi and phero. My wife tells me that I'd better get the hand up about this high when I do this. If I have it a little lower, she says it's something that's not too nice that she does to me sometimes. So I'd better get it up here. Okay. Now, we have the verb in the 3rd singular, he gave. He gave. After we analyze the verb, we want to see if the subject is further expressed. Now, the verb is 3rd singular. If the subject is further expressed, what would we be looking for to see what it might be? We would a singular nominative, right? And in this clause, do you see a singular nominative? Oh, this word monogene might look like one, huh? Like maybe a feminine singular nominative ending in that eta. But no, it's not. Look at the definite article in front of it. The definite article in front of it is masculine singular accusative. So this one weird form that we haven't covered yet, that's masculine singular accusative. Well, no, the subject's not further expressed here. It's only in the verb, he. He gave. Let's see what it is he gave. Now remember, when we ask the question what or whom, we're looking for the direct object. Well, we see the words ton without a preposition in front of them. How do you parse the word huion? Well, learning from your vocabulary or looking it up in a dictionary, we know it's masculine. And with this ending, we know it's singular accusative. So there's our direct object. He gave the Son. This word monogene is actually an adjective, and it means only begotten. Let me show you something about adjectives in Greek. I'll use the words the Holy Spirit to show you about adjectives in Greek. The Holy Spirit. Now that's the way we would say it in English, right? We'd have the definite article, the adjective, and then the noun that it's modifying, the Holy Spirit. But Greek can write the adjective in another way. It can write it this way. To pneuma. Repeat the definite article, and then put the adjective. Topneumatologion. This also means the Holy Spirit. Both of these lines mean the Holy Spirit, and there is no difference, it's just stylistic. Not one is more important or more emphatic than the other. This is called the attributive position for an adjective. The attributive position for an adjective. An adjective attributing a noun. So when we look back now at John 3:16, and we see this adjective, ton huion ton monogene, we see that this adjective monogene is an attributive adjective modifying huion. How else could it have been written? It could have been written like this. Ton monogene huion, where the adjective would be before the noun. And either one of these styles are appropriate. Now, we said that this word hoste introduces a result clause, a clause showing the result of some action, a verb. What result is this telling us about which verb? Well, previously, we see that for God loved the world in this way, and God loved with what result? What was the result of the loving that God did? The result is that He gave the only begotten Son. Now, you're used to the translation with the result that He gave His only begotten Son. The word His isn't present here, but I will tell you that there are times when the definite article can stand in place of a personal pronoun if the context allows for it. And in this particular context, it certainly does. So it is perfectly legitimate to say, with the result that He gave His only begotten Son.